again, मैं हूं आपका साथी, आपका anchor, आपका दोस्त Jamie Alter, and we're again talking cricket, not just the ongoing series between India and the West Indies, which Rohit Sharma's team leads 2-1, but again the path, especially from an Indian perspective, to the T20 World Cup, which starts in, I think, a little under 2.5 months now in Australia. Since the last show, the Asia's Cup schedule has also been announced, which starts August 27th. मतलब 2.5-3 हफ्ते के अंदर वो टूर्नामेंट भी शुरू होने वाला है, विच आई थिंक आप में से ज़्यादा लोग सहमत होंगे कि गिवन द chopping and changing or experimenting with the Indian cricket team, perhaps the closest indication to India's World Cup squad and World Cup starting 11 will be the Asia Cup, which gets underway for all practical purposes on August 28th when India meet Pakistan. Joining me on today's show is cricket analyst Anuj Trivedi. Any moment now, I'll get him here on the screen. I'll just run you through the drill again. आप जानते हैं कि ये शो बहुत ही इनफॉर्मल है. यहाँ पे आपके व्यूज हैं, जो आपके क्वेश्चंस हैं, आप नीचे अपने लॉक स्क्रीन में डाल सकते हैं. कोशिश रहेगी आपको इंक्लूड करने की इस शो पे, and also to get you going with some questions as well. Any second now, Anuj will join us and we'll get the topic going. अगर आपने कल का मैच देखा तो काफी entertaining मैच था. Of course, with the late start, the matches go very, very late in the night, and not all of us are able to watch the games. But again, the experimenting continued. Just got a message from Anuj. Try to get him on the show. There we go. We've got his request now, and I'll get him on the show, and then we'll talk. So let's welcome Anuj on the show for the first time. Show ka naam hai The Alternate View, and I'm looking forward to another fun talk with another cricket fan and cricket analyst. So there he is.
Hi, Jamie.
Hey Anuj, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. You can hear me fine. We got a
Yes.
good frame. So yeah, man, welcome to the show for the first time. Like I was just telling our viewers, very very informal
Yeah.
show, and it's just two people who love and follow cricket, talking about the sport. So I know you've been watching the series. I
Yes.
though say openly, I don't manage to last the distance when the game starts so late. But of course, we have highlight and all those good things to catch up on the next day. What about you?
Uh, Actually, it's my work, so I have to stay up because the second one was quite tough because of the constant delays. So it did hit the
Yeah.
schedule a bit. But then again, you got to work, so couldn't help it there. Yeah,
I mean, look, it's a great job that we have,
that's
to
true.
be able to watch cricket and get paid for it. So I keep
Definitely.
saying we're blessed. We're
Couldn't
blessed.
have hoped for a
Welcome to the
better thing.
show.
Yeah.
Bilkul. A lot of our viewers are saying hi, Anuj. Welcome. Thank you all for your love. Keep sending the hearts and the emojis. कुछ सवाल हैं मेरे लिए, अनुज के लिए, तो आप अपने लॉक स्क्रीन पे डाल सकते हैं. Let's get straight into it. India up 2-1. A lot of our players are back in this. I want to start with sort of the current flavor, Anuj. Wo hai Surya Kumar Yadav. It's a good time to be Surya Kumar Yadav because we all know the amount of struggle. I think more than struggle, the patience which that man has had to look for, because we've seen his record, IPL में, domestic में बहुत लोग कह रहे थे कि इस बंदे को पहले मौका मिलना चाहिए था. He got his chance and news just came a couple hours ago that he's now risen to number 2 in the
Yes.
rankings. That 100 he got a few weeks ago against Ireland, it jumped him 44 places to number 5, और कल के innings के बाद he's at number 2. So from many angles, sort of the flavor of Indian cricket right now is Surya Kumar Yadav.
Definitely, and I think he's probably one of the most versatile batsmen that we have right now because now we are seeing that he can even open the batting. We all knew how good he was at number 3, number 4, and even 5, or even at number 6 and 7 when he was finishing the games for KKR. But this new role is quite refreshing for us because it provides us a lot of other options because we can then move around our batting order entirely based on the situation, not be rigid about the playing 11 and the batting order. It's quite good if someone's providing that quality that consistently.
Absolutely. I will take this forward, but I'm going to play a very, very short clip which the BCCI had put out yesterday. This is Surya Kumar Yadav, yesterday's man of the match, just signing autographs for some fans. Let's watch this. Kumar Yadav. Let's get him up on our screens here. You spoke about versatility,
Yeah.
adaptability. This photo here, which we got on our screen, this sort of sums up, the essence of what Surya Kumar Yadav does. हमने बात करी experience की, KKR, middle order, Mumbai Indians batting at three, all these things put together. I think by the time Anuj that this guy got his chance, and only last year, it seems like longer, but it's actually only last year
Yeah.
that he got his chance. He'd
True.
achieved so much, he'd been through so much that, like any top player will tell you, when you have that understanding of your game, it really keeps you at the best position to walk into and perform any role. And we've seen Anuj, even in a short span of time, this whatever role he's been given, he's pretty much doing it.
Definitely. And I think he even mentioned it in one of his interviews that the debut came at a point in life where he wasn't really, I would say, desperate for it. It came, so he felt good, but he wasn't too desperate to leave his mark on the international stage. And I think that's one of the reasons that he has been able to blend in so nicely in the international level as well. Because a lot of times, if you are debuting at a young age, you get overawed by the occasion and the situation. But having spent so many years at the game and seeing all the ups and downs, I think that has really seasoned him, and we are seeing the fruits of it.
Yeah. A lot of our viewers here are also agreeing with what you're saying. He's impressed at three, four, five, but this role with which he was thrust, and we'll come to this whole experimenting theme as we go on. One decent match, one poor match, and then of course yesterday's match where he finished the chase, I think, with an over to spare. Flexibility एक तरफ, adaptability एक तरफ. Do you think it's fair that he was suddenly given this job? Because perhaps he was not meant, he was not perhaps seeing this, because we saw Ishan Kishan has done the job, I think, the most of all the experiments. Of course, in a perfect world, Rahul would be fit and Rahul would be opening with Rohit Sharma. But jo bhi karan hai, we've seen Ishan Kishan. Then out of the blue, we saw Rishabh Pant get the match for
Yes.
the job for I think two matches, but now he's been given it. And we've seen, if you succeed, the longer the rope is extended. Do you think it's something which he is naturally tuned to opening? I'm not so convinced. मेरे हिसाब से his best role is four in the T20 side.
Even I agree because I think the ability that he provides at number four, I don't think anyone else in the team provides. He can definitely open the innings and do a good job that like we saw yesterday. But the ability that he has at that specific position, I don't think anyone else has in the team. We have Rahul, but he's more suited to the opening position. You know how good he can be in the middle order in the ODIs. But if you want to maximize the opportunity, you bat him at the top. So in an ideal world, yeah, you would open with Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul, then move Kohli at three, even move Surya Kumar at three, depending on the situation of the game, and then take Kohli back if the Pacers are lined up for the later half of the innings. So I think yeah, role clarity would be better. But then again, Rohit Sharma said that they are keen on experimenting a lot of things. They want to see how many people are able to as, adapt to different positions. So it's going to be interesting. I hope the players are given the role clarity. Yeah.
Role clarity is, I think, a term which is very, very important now. And just speaking of that, you mentioned KL Rahul. He's here on our screen. I know you're aware, Anuj, but I want our viewers to realize that this guy has not played a single T20 international for India in the whole year. और हम अगस्त, हम आज क्या है, 2 तारीख, 3 तारीख,
Yeah.
we're literally 2.5 weeks away from the Asia Cup selection. We've seen कि केएल राहुल आईपीएल में क्या कर सकते हैं. I think in the last 5 seasons, if I'm not mistaken, he's been in the top three of the run getters. Forget what his various franchise does and where they end up, but he's kept himself in the reckoning purely on his form in the IPL. But अब मेरा सवाल ये है, and again, it's a hard one because he's not played. Does he then walk back into the squad, into the 11, in your opinion, the moment he's fit?
See, I personally feel Rahul is probably the best T20 player that we have, even better than Kohli and Rohit Sharma, I would say, purely because of the
Okay,
ability
okay.
that he has, the range that he has. But in case of Rahul, I think the only issue is his mental aspect and
Hmm.
the way he approaches the game. Because we can see that he can clearly take the bowling attacks apart right from the word go. He has its talent and ability to do that, which I don't think anyone else
Sure.
has. So it's more about the mental aspect that we need to tune in for Rahul. But again, if you are not playing that much and the others are grabbing their opportunities, I think that would be really unfair on the others as well, because they have been fit enough, they have been performing as well, and they have made consistently decent amount of runs to make their case. So it's going to be a tough call. I think the 15 shouldn't be an issue, but the issue will come down to the last 11. on paper, which which could be tricky.
Yeah, no, I love the way that you summed up. It's not just about the runs, but these players have stayed fit. Of course,
Yeah,
जाहिर सी बात है कि no player wants to get injured, but in this
definitely,
day and age, Anuj, of a cramped schedule of so much competition, we obviously know growing up in the 90s that there was a lot of competition for the middle order. Someone like an
yeah,
Amol Mazumdar, he did everything possibly in his hands to score runs, but he didn't get a chance. But even now, I mean, having watched Indian cricket for so long, I just marvel at the depth that we have. Yes, KL Rahul, as you said, he could arguably be the best player, and he has that range. I think somehow he gets bogged down by that whole strike rate matter, with
yeah,
something which he said. But when he's on song, when he's in flow, इससे अच्छा कोई player नहीं है, because he can switch gears the way a Surya Kumar Yadav does without making it look like it's a tough job.
definitely,
But like you rightly said, it's unfair on the likes of even a Deepak Hooda who has grabbed his chances
definitely.
outstandingly. So
Yeah,
if Rahul does come back, and yes, if Rahul is fit, if the BCCI and the team management, if all the powers that be को लगता है कि ये बंदा 2 महीने के लिए fit रह सकता है, then like I said, I have no issues with him walking back for the Asia Cup and then the World Cup. But unfair on so many players if this happens.
definitely. I think that's how the sport works. Actually, you make the best use of the opportunities that you get and make your best case. Then you leave it up to the people who are going to decide the final outcome. So there is only little that there's in your control. You just do your controllables right and then see how it goes. Because again, a lot of it is fate. You don't know when you can get injured. You might pull a muscle just a day before the game. So it's funny how this works on a lot of occasions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fair enough. Let's move on to the next big name here. I'm going to put him up on our screen here. Rohit Sharma. Um, he's also got his fair share of rest. थोड़े injury prone है, and unfortunately he got COVID before that rescheduled fifth test match. But he's a very, very important player, as you know, because he's captain of all formats. He's probably played about as much as he's missed this year. Um, not Anuj, not had the best of years as a batsman. Let's forget test matches because एक ही तो test match था which he was ruled out of. But his T20 numbers are not the best. He looked good in the previous to previous match. But yesterday's match, again, pulling up with a bit of a niggle, not a good sight for Indian cricket, not something we want to see. Let's say, Khuda na khasta, his injury gets worse and he misses more matches. We know that Rohit Sharma is not going to Zimbabwe. If we face ourselves in the unlikely but uncomfortable situation के राहुल को लेके डाउट है, कि कोहली को लेके डाउट है, कि रोहित को लेके डाउट है, who then foreseeably could be India's makeshift top three for the Asia Cup, you think?
I think Kohli will go to the Asia Cup. So in Kohli, you have an opening option. Now we have
You do?
seen that, yeah. Now we have seen that even Surya Kumar can be a good option. Ishan Kishan will most likely be a part of the 15-member squad. So we have that option as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then if things go worse and you have to force Pant to open, even he could do a good job because I think he's more suited as an opener in T20s rather than at number 5 and 6 because
absolutely.
he can make use of the power play. Because in the middle overs, he finds it a bit difficult to rotate the strike and go right after the spinners. So he wouldn't be a bad option as an opener. I was actually surprised that he wasn't given more opportunities against West Indies because I thought it
Absolutely,
would
I
be a great
agree.
opportunity for him to make his mark as an opener. Because otherwise, there's a lot of competition in middle order, so you don't see Pant being the first choice in the in this Indian middle order. So yeah, we'll have to see how the team management looks at it. Having said that, even although Rohit Sharma was an obvious choice for the captaincy, I was actually surprised to see him as a captain of all the three formats, purely because of his age and his recent injury record. I think he
बिल्कुल.
could have been given a bit of break in the ODIs, especially with the way our team was performing under Virat Kohli in ODIs. But then again, that's a different topic altogether, which could be a lot of controversial one. So let's stay away from
No,
that.
no, no, Anuj, it's a topic we've done a couple shows on, and I'm on the same page as you. I was not surprised that Rohit Sharma was made the captain at that time, because, like I said on previous shows, Virat Kohli's exit from the captaincy at the Test level was somewhat surprising. It came, I think, a
Yes,
day. I think a day after we lost that test series.
out of
But like
England.
I
Yeah,
said before, if the management, if the BCCI, if they had to on the spot look around the dressing room and say, "Yaar, kisko banaye?" Rohit Sharma was standing there, right? Because he had achieved so much as a Test player in the last 2 odd years that on status, and he'd of course he has 5 IPL titles to his name. Wo sab theek hai, but I also said, "Yaar, boss, he's injury prone.
Definitely.
He's going to be 35 in 3 months. Now he's past the
Yeah.
35 mark,
Yeah.
and we're seeing it again. The injury prone thing is perhaps going to be what determines how long he plays. Keeping that in mind, his form, his status as, in my view, the most important player now, because जो कप्तान है वो by default सबसे important हो जाता है. But what do
Definitely.
you make of all this constant, resting? Do you call it rest? Do you call rotation? I get it. It's a T20 World Cup year. You want to have your players in fit condition, but मुझे लग रहा है थोड़ा ज्यादा resting हो रहा है. 2.5 months away from
I
the World
think
Cup.
in this case we'll have to prioritize which format we are picking the players for. In this year, I don't think ODIs are of that importance. So you could rest them
Sure,
altogether
sure.
from the ODIs, but make sure that you play the core in the T20 tournaments leading up to the Asia Cup and then the T20 World Cup. I think from now on we'll see that the main 13, 14 players will be a part of the squad, T20 squad, and post November, I think a lot of these players will be focusing on ODIs and they might skip an occasional T20 tournament because then the focus will
Yep.
shift to the 2023 50 over World Cup. But yeah, regarding his captaincy, we are actually seeing the consequences of that because we have what, like 8 captains this year, and it's a result of him missing out due to injury or rest. So making an old player a captain of all formats, it will have a toll on his body. Not to forget that IPL is growing, and it's going to put even more toll on his body. So it's a tricky thing, but again, selectors will have to prioritize which tournament they're focusing on. And I hope they prioritize the World Cups because it's been a long time that we have won a global trophy. So
Yep.
yeah,
No, it has. And yes, I agree with you, K. In a T20 World Cup year, the build up to that, you do focus on T20s, which is why I have no issue with these big players. And by big players, I'm talking about Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli. Chalo, KL Rahul's injured. But these players, in my book, and all my guests who I've asked the same question to, these guys should not be skipping the T20s 3 months before a T20 World Cup.
definitely.
Beshak, no issues. Skip the one days because, like you rightly said, after the T20 World Cup, irrespective of where the Indian team ends up after that, the focus will then switch to one days because next October, yani ki October 2023, we have a home World Cup which you're expected to win. Bringing the topic to this guy on our screen, Shreyas Iyer. I was digging up some stats before we got going. कहाँ गया वो? कहाँ गया? Sorry, Shreyas Iyer. Before this series, he was pretty much scoring runs for fun. He had a fantastic start to his Test career. He scored all those runs against West Indies, against Sri Lanka.
Sri
Before the
Lanka.
start of the IPL, fantastic. IPL इनका अच्छा नहीं गया. Post the IPL in T20 eyes for India, Shreyas Iyer scored 36, 40, 14, 4, 0 not out. The match was washed out. 28, 0, 10, and 24. That's 156 runs, Anuj, from 8 innings at 19.5 and a strike rate of 110. We briefly spoke about how things change so often. Itna utar chadav hota hai Indian cricket mein. But things could not have perhaps gone worse for a guy who was looking undroppable before the IPL to right now. Where do you see this guy right now?
I think the most worrying number that you mentioned is his strike rate, which is of around 110. For a player of his quality, Uh, it is surprising because there are obviously all the players have their own challenges and weaknesses. Sometimes they are aggravated because of uh, how others make you look. I don't
Yep,
think he's a
yep.
bad player, but the others around him and the ones who are replacing him in the squad are performing much better than him, which is why his place is in question. Right? Like you said, in the first couple of months of this year, he was almost undroppable. There were even questions that whether Virat Kohli deserves to be in the place instead of Shreyas Iyer. There were such high sounds, but then you also need to take the opponent into the context, the conditions that the runs
Definitely.
came in, because they were home matches. You Most of the players are expected to perform in home matches, especially against slightly weaker sides like Sri Lanka and West Indies. But when you go to Australia, the conditions I don't think are quite suitable to his gameplay. Again, I don't
We've
think
seen that. Yeah.
Again, I don't think he's a terrible player of short ball because he can get away with short pitch balls in T20s and one days. It's a more of a test match problem. But then in the shorter format, you don't get that many short balls, and he has that kind of shots to negotiate them. But
Yeah.
then we have a better option since there's Deepak Hooda, who has taken his chances quite well. There is Jadeja. I know they offer different kind of roles, but eventually they're competing for that 4, 5, 6 spot, because you are certainly locking Hardik Pandya in, you are locking Surya
Sure.
Kumar in. So there are only 2 to 3 positions available. Then there is Rishabh Pant competing for that same spot. So I wouldn't say suddenly become a bad player. Just that the
Hmm.
others around him are making him slightly lesser of a batter.
Absolutely, but and that is something that every top player in this competitive era has to be aware of. It
Yeah,
probably Anuj, probably 5 months ago, Shreyas Iyer's main competition was Surya Yadav because they were competing
definitely.
for that number 4 spot. Then Virat Kohli was rested. Iyer got a rope at 3. He scored runs. Yes, I agree with you. He scored runs at home against West Indies and Sri Lanka in series, which India won 3-0. I think both the series.
Yes,
But when the competition is so intense, so high, you as a player should be looking to somehow stay above the curve. And unfortunately, that short ball problem is something that he struggled with. Maybe he can get away with it in test matches because that there's a wider field. He has time to adjust. But in T20s, there's literally no place to hide now.
yeah. Especially with all the video analysts tracking you, tracking each and every move, your trigger movements, the way you react to a ball, the body reacts to the short ball. So it's tough. And once a problem gets highlighted on that level, I think it's only going
Correct?
to get worse if you don't correct it and take preemptive measures. I think the first step would be to address that, yes, this is an issue, rather than saying that it's not an issue. Only once you accept that there is an issue, you can correct it. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you mentioned Deepak Hooda, who was going to be my next topic of discussion. It's a very small sample size, Anuj,
Yes.
but for me, what he did against Ireland and briefly against England, batting at number 3. Of course, you score 100, everyone's watching you. But uske baad, he got that 35 at a strike rate of about 190, if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
against England. And then he was rested for a while. But this kind of batting approach, एक होता है कि you grab the opportunities, which you talked about. दूसरा is buying into the team mentality. And it seems to me and most people who are watching Indian cricket, okay, the shifting of gears. India batsmen now want to score faster runs. And we saw this in
Yes.
England. If 5 batsmen get you quick 35s and 40s, maybe 8 times out of 10 you're going to be able to put up a good score on the board. Then it's over to your
Absolutely.
bowlers. मेरे
Yeah.
हिसाब से दीपक हुडा is doing this. Unfair that he's not got as many chances since then, and by since then I mean 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest advantage that he has over all the other top order players is his ability to contribute with the ball. I don't
Sure.
think any of the top order batter provides that ability, and it's also off spin, which could be a good. I would say it could complement Yuzvendra Chahal as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if the time comes and even Ravindra Jadeja has been having some fitness issues of late. So he might even replace Ravindra Jadeja. I wouldn't completely surprised with that move,
That's
because
an interesting angle, huh?
because see, he has this game to go from the ball one, be it against spin or pace. He has that ability. And like we saw even against England, he came in the first over when Rohit Sharma got out, I think, and he straight away countered the spinners. He took on Moeen Ali very early. So he's
Yep.
fearless, and like you rightly said, he's buying into the team mentality. Because we have seen in the past that India have been scoring 170, 180 for the loss of 2 wickets, 3 wickets. So you're just wasting the resources on your hand. So now
Absolutely.
I would rather see India score 190, 200 at the loss of 8 wickets, and even get bowled out by around 150 going for 200, rather than preserve wickets and just end up being a par score. So I think he's a wild card. He could be somewhat like what Vijay Shankar did to Ambati Raidu before the 2019 World Cup, because he was nowhere in contention,
He was.
say 5 to 6 months before the World Cup. But then his
Yep.
performance is made people notice of his ability. And in T20, you have to see them as horses for courses. That's plain simple. You cannot be resting on the past laurels or ability. You see the current form, current fitness. Yeah.
Absolutely. I like the fact that you mentioned, Anuj, about teams batting out 20 overs and having 7 to 8 wickets left. Like we keep joking here when we play our weekend cricket here in Delhi. Yeah, baki wicket kya ghar leke jaoge, so and I think this is a conscious attempt under Rahul Dravid and Rohit Sharma.
Yes.
But I like your the Ravindra Jadeja example, right? And it's a fact. I don't think anyone will disagree with the both of us here, हमारे viewers. And by the way, a lot of comments coming in saying thank you. Viewers, sorry, क्या होता क्या है कि when we get into a discussion, we don't always see, but thank you for your comments. If you have any direct questions to me and Anuj, please mention it here. But Ravindra Jadeja has not been the bowler we know he could be in T20I cricket or one day cricket for about 2 years now, right?
Yes,
So the question comes to Asia Cup, or Asia Cup could be the direct audition for the World Cup. I don't think we need two left arm spinners at the World Cup. So it's a shootout between Akshar and Jadeja. दोनों के bowling figures almost एक जैसे हैं. So in that scenario, probably Jadeja if it goes on reputation. But this guy on our lock screen here is doing the job. Jadeja's bowling four decent overs. This guy can give you two or three.
absolutely. And if
Ashwin,
yeah, and
हाँ,
a fit, and since Hardik Pandya's come back, he's been fit enough to
बिल्कुल,
contribute even 4 overs each match. So then you
बिल्कुल.
don't really need a proper sixth bowling, like a bowler who gives you 4 overs. Between say Hardik Pandya and Deepak Hooda, you can easily manage 4 to 5 overs. And yeah, if I think Yuzvendra Chahal will be a short starter, be it in Asia Cup or the T20 World Cup,
Definitely.
the option would be to then either have Ravi Bishnoi as his backup or get in
Yep.
Kuldeep Yadav. But then if you get in all those guys in the 11, then the tail is quite long. None of them can bat because there's Bumrah, Bhuvi. None of them are good T20 batters. So rather than including them, I would rather have a say Deepak Hooda or Ravindra Jadeja for that matter. Because then you take
Sure.
Ravindra Jadeja purely as a batsman who could contribute a couple of overs
Hmm.
if needed. If Pandya is
Mhm.
performing well, I don't think we need another bowler. So
Mm. And that is why this guy on our screen here, Hardik Pandya, this is why he's such a gem and such a rare player because we've seen with any quality all rounder. Like with Ravindra Jadeja in test matches, I have argued that Ravindra Jadeja in test matches could be India's most important player because jab wo nahi hai, the balance gets thrown out of whack. And the same
absolutely,
thing we've seen now. I think we reached a point where because we Indian cricket followers had not seen Hardik Pandya bowl Anuj for so long, we'd forgotten that what he can do. But that IPL of this year, to my mind, could end up in 5 months' time being the definitive story of the year in regards to Indian cricket. Because Indian cricket को जो मिला IPL से, not about this guy winning the title with Gujarat Titans, but coming back, batting at four, rediscovering his mojo, and now bowling. कल के मैच में this guy was exceptional. 4 overs, 1 for 19. This
19.
is what
Yeah.
you need because you need that kind of balance.
I think the biggest focus on Hardik Pandya in the IPL would have been on his fitness and not his form, because
Yep,
everyone
yep,
knows
yep,
his how he can perform at the biggest stage. The question has always been over his fitness and whether he can go through all the matches without getting injured. And he
yep.
has shown since then that he has been super fit. He wants to be bowling because he understands the value he provides to the team if he bowls. Because then as you rightly said, the entire balance shifts. You can then have an extra batter, or you can have
Yep.
a much better bowler who you could just discount their batting because we already have a bowler who can bat. So the
Mm.
balance that he provides in the limited overs, I don't think anyone else in the Indian setup currently provides, and I don't think
Yep.
there's even a able replacement for him right now, at least not in
Yep.
the near future.
Absolutely. And I think, Anuj, that day is not far where, just to rewind what we were talking about a few minutes ago about Rohit being perhaps a stopgap captain. लिख के ले लो मेरे से, the day is not far when they give the T20I captaincy to him post the T20 World Cup.
I think yeah, it could
Doing the
be
job.
around the end of the year. Yeah,
Yep, yep. I
wouldn't
would
be
not be
surprised.
surprised
Yeah,
at all, na?
definitely, because he actually I don't think it's a tangible thing, but when you look at him, he looks like a leader on the field. You know that there is
बिल्कुल.
a guy who has his plans sorted out. Whereas if you see a KL Rahul, he at times looks a bit lost. I'm not denying that he isn't a good captain.
Mm.
He might not be as expressive as the others, but when you see it, Hardik Pandya, he has a good cricketing brain, and the fact that he also bowls, so he understands the bowler's mentality. So he could be a good bowling captain as well. So yeah, he could be the I think the next captain that we might have post this World Cup.
And we need some kind of change because it's too much to expect Anuj Rohit Sharma at 35
Yeah,
to lead across all formats. It was a decision in my mind taken, uh, keeping in mind there was a T20 World Cup in
yeah,
October, followed by the ODI World Cup the next October. and then that all important WTC table where India at the time were in the middle rung, and given Rohit's pedigree, it had to be someone who would help them get to the top. Whether it happens, we'll see. This guy on our screen is for me another story of this year. We know what he can do in the IPL, but to get your India debut, despite I think someone sent a heart here. Thank you, whoever sent the heart. That heart exploded and got me and Anuj distracted. Very nice of you. मैंने कहा phone को हो गया ये क्या हो रहा है ये? But again, just Arshdeep Singh, not very quick, did not even finish in the top 10 wicket takers, but his
Yeah,
job and to fulfill that role of checking opposition teams in the death overs was what got him into the India squad. And on the basis of 4 or 5 matches, I think Anuj इस लड़के ने कर दिया enough to book his ticket to Australia. Your thoughts?
I would be really disappointed if he misses out from the 15-member squad, because whenever he has been thrown into a challenge, say even in bowling in the power plays or at the death, he's been phenomenal. Like for a
Yep.
guy who's just 20, 21, to show the experience of a matured bowler, it's quite, I would say, it's a revelation for us, because
Yep. Yep.
it's been a long time since we have found a good left arm spinner, a left arm pacer. After Zahir's retirement, there was a brief period where Ashish Nehra made a comeback, but since then we've been looking for a left arm bowler. And for someone who's so accurate at the death, it's really heartening to see. And I just see him going onwards and upwards from this point.
Correct. And we've also seen that one man's gain can be another man's loss, and vice versa. Arshdeep Singh was sort of behind the queue when it came to someone like an Avesh. Avesh has done decently in one half of his role, but I was seeing the stats in about 5 overs at the death. He's not taken a wicket, and his
Yeah.
economy rate is somewhere around 17. So on the one hand,
Yes.
we talked about fierce competition. Jab Avesh Khan is not living up to his reputation and Arshdeep Singh is doing it, then very easily someone like an Avesh falls behind the line. So I would not be surprised. And like you said, I would be somewhat disappointed if Arshdeep Singh did not make the bus. But again, abhi bhi time hai. There's a couple bilateral series. There is another heart is exploding on my screen and distracting me. Thank you for all the love, जो भी है, but it's distracting here. So again, Arshdeep Singh, there's another bowler which you also briefly alluded to. I'm going to bring him up on our screen as well. मैं इस लड़के का बहुत बहुत बड़ा fan हूँ, और वो है रवि बिश्नोई.
Vishnu.
Just to
Yeah.
remind our viewers, um, Kuldeep Yadav is also back in the squad. He's not got a match, but Ravi Bishnoi got that one match. I thought he did enough to play the next two as well.
Definitely. And even Rohit Sharma was quite sorry that he had to keep him out of the 11, because when at the toss he mentioned his omission, it looked like he was genuinely sorry about keeping him out of the 11, because he
Yeah, yeah,
understands how well he performed at that stage. But
yep,
again, I wouldn't be too hopeful or like, too surprised to see him in the 15-member squad, because again you have Yuzvendra Chahal, who's almost a sure starter. So you
correct,
could
correct.
have him as his backup, but I don't think he'll be playing in the 11.
Hmm.
But again, the both of them are quite different in terms of their bowling. Chahal mainly focuses on his leg spin and is slightly
Yep.
slower in the air, whereas Vishnu focuses a lot more on his googlies. So even though they are both leg spinners, they have different kind of approach towards leg spin, which
Yeah.
could come in handy if there's a need for it.
Absolutely, and its depth and variety is something which you need. I'm getting a call from. Okay, I cannot take this call right now. But yeah, exactly. So just keeping in mind all that we've discussed. India up 2-1, 2-1 in the series. A lot of positives. People are calling it experimentation. Just to wrap up, Anuj, do you think that the Asia Cup will be the closest indication we get to seeing India's World Cup 15?
Provided there are no other injuries to the main players, I would
Correct.
be thinking that the 15 that we select for Asia Cup will most likely travel to Australia as well, unless there's
Correct.
someone who is horribly out of form.
Correct. These hearts are great, but they're very distracting. Thank you, whoever it is.
Yeah.
Ha ha.
So unless there's an injury later in the build up to the World Cup, I I think we'll see the same 11 from UAE to Australia.
Yeah.
And one name I think we might have missed out is Harshad Patel. A lot of people kind of forget his performances, but the balance he provides in the bowling attack someone who can consistently bowl in the death overs and in the middle
Right,
overs.
right,
I
right,
think it
right,
could
right,
be
right,
a short starter in the 11. Not
right.
to forget his batting ability.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a good name you've taken. He was someone who seemingly had done all that required to sort of make the thing. But there was a message from the BCI this morning that he's not entirely fit. I hope
Yes,
we get him back because he's a kind of death bowler, good fielder, can score some runs. He's someone we definitely need to take to the World Cup. Just
definitely.
one final thing, keeping in mind the match situation. Now the series is shifting to Fort Lauderdale in Florida, a ground which is pretty high scoring, small boundaries. You think India can wrap up the series 4-1?
Definitely. The question would be if we can manage to win both the games. And
Yeah,
again, like we had in the 2016, it could be a really high scoring one. We had scores of 240 plus in those matches 6 years ago.
yeah,
So I don't think we'll have a low scoring one like the ones we have had in St. Kitts.
yeah,
Batting surfaces would be mainly batter friendly. So I
yep,
expect, and I don't think we'll have a lot of changes. Although people would like to see new guys coming in, but from what I understand is the team management has a specific role in mind for each player. And I don't think they'll tinker too much around that. It would be
sure.
harsh on others, but
Yeah,
I don't think they'll experiment that much. Maybe in the
bilkul.
batting positions.
Absolutely. Yes, the Asia Cup will, in our view, be the final indication. There was a question from a viewer here. Ki, when is the Asia Cup starting? My friend, the Asia Cup. Oh, these hearts are too loud. Thank you. My friend, the Asia Cup is starting on August 27th. Sri Lanka's playing, but for all practical purposes, it's August 28th. Jab India Pakistan killing it. That is when it starts off. To answer your question, Anuj, we run out of time. Thank you so much for making time in your schedule. I've had a blast talking cricket with you, my friend.
Say likewise, Jamie. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. We will
Yeah,
do this again. You be well.
definitely.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. You too.
And
Bye.
thank you everyone for all your hearts and all your questions for us and your comments. Thank you. We'll see you again soon. Bye.